So it is already July 6th of 2024, and we only have 2 episodes remaining of The Acolyte. Nothing can reverse the backlash over this thing, and of course, nothing that leslye, headland, Kathleen Kennedy, or Amanda Stenberg says is going to fix any kind of problem that the Walt Disney Company is dealing with right now, that Lucasfilm is currently dealing with when it comes to the Acolyte backlash. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Kathleen Kennedy is that we know that she is the source of the problem. It's not just Bob Iger, it's not just the Disney heads, of course, such as the board of directors. It has a lot to do with the fact that Kathleen Kennedy is still employed as the president of Lucasfilm and as a producer across all Star Wars productions. Now, this is the main problem, is that we know that Kathleen has her own agenda, she likes to hire who she hires, and that's that. Bob Iger seemingly does not challenge who Kathleen Kennedy decides to hire. For a fine example here, you have someone like leslye Headland, who is indeed the former personal assistant of Harvey Weinstein, somebody that was allowed to create The Acolyte as a show. And I think the roles would be quite reversed if it were an actual male that took that overall spot and so happened to be, one that had a past like that. I think Disney would have reacted in a different way, no doubt about it. But moving onwards, everything related to Kathleen Kennedy and the ongoing shakeup between Lucasfilm and the Walt Disney Company continues to worsen each and every day. So let's get into this, shall we? Now, specifically, of course, we know that everything related to Kathleen Kennedy and how she's been handling the overall fallout with The Acolyte has not been so good so far, and how it ultimately led to losing millions of dollars. Now, with all divisions at the Walt Disney Company going through endless challenges and setbacks, one major development now has more to do with Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy and what recently happened behind the scenes between both Lucasfilm and the Walt Disney Company. A crucial update to this situation is that not only did leslye Headland lose out on a multi-million-dollar deal, but so did Kathleen Kennedy after she was initially promised a significant raise from the Walt Disney Company as Lucasfilm president. Kennedy makes an estimated $26 million a year as president of Lucasfilm, and was reportedly promised by those like Bob Iger and the Disney heads that her payout was going to increase from that $26 million margin all the way up to roughly, get this, $35 million a year. A $9 million increase roughly was discussed between Kennedy and the Disney heads back in November of 2023. And was supposed to go into full effect by the end of this month of July. This also worked hand in hand with how Kennedy was indeed seeking a contract renewal at Lucasfilm, since her contract, by the way, expires this year, as she is desperately trying to remain at the company until the end of 2027, before finally stepping down altogether. However, Kennedy is already reportedly furious over The Acolyte Season 2 getting axed by Bob Iger behind closed doors, since this was going to grant Kennedy a roughly $6 million payout alone as a producer for the 2026 year. Already 3 board members at the Walt Disney Company are beginning to pressure Bob Iger to fire Kathleen Kennedy. However, the majority of the board want her to stick around until 2027. Kennedy is already in the process of taking some form of action against the Disney heads to reinstate her $9 million pay raise. However, surprisingly, this didn't have to do with just the Acolyte's failure, but mainly it had to do with Bob Iger's cost containment plan going into full effect, and how many high-status producers like Kathleen Kennedy are going through these, of course, raises getting cancelled. However, Kennedy's failure with The Acolyte was described to be the tipping point for Iger to reduce her payout even further by another $3 million, something that created a larger shakeup between Iger and Kennedy, and is a fine example of how they eventually eat each other in the end when things don't go their way. In addition to all of that, the cancellation of the High Republic Star Wars trilogy that was planned to debut on Disney Plus and produced for the streaming platform was axed after the recent failure of The Acolyte lost Kathleen Kennedy another multi-million-dollar deal for those films as a producer strictly. Though, of course, the specific amount is currently unknown, it was estimated to be around $6 to $7 million per film. So, again, like I've said before, guys, we know that all of these Star Wars movies, whether it's the ones that were catered to use familiar faces or create something totally new. They get announced, and they fall into that production limbo mode, or they're in the works behind closed doors, and they don't really reach that official announcement just yet, and they get scrapped. Now, we see a similar pattern happening right now with the Rey Skywalker movie. I don't know if you guys knew this, but they were supposed to begin filming in April of this year. That then got delayed until late 2024. Now, filming is not going to start until sometime in 2025. They don't even know when it's going to start. This is likely going to delay the release date of the Rey movie from December of 2026 until May of 2027. Which could very well be why she wants that contract renewal until 2027 to see things through with the Rey movie. Because as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, this is said to be Kathleen Kennedy's supposed love letter to sequel trilogy fans. Alright? So, moving onwards, on top of that, Kennedy already had many argumentative conversations with those like Bob Iger about his recent cutbacks on funds for not just Lucasfilm Productions, but also for the employees, including high-status producers like Kathleen Kennedy, who is also the president of the company. This all comes in the wake of the Acolyte ratings disaster hitting yet another historic low for Lucasfilm after Episode 6 dropped on Disney+. Look, we all know that Disney Plus is not performing well when it comes to anything Marvel or Star Wars lately. It really doesn't seem to be resonating with those fans, or those fandoms, if you will. We have another Star Wars show coming out during this holiday season. I don't know if you guys knew about that as well. It's called Skeleton Crew, and it is basically not going to be the main series of this year. It's more or less of a side story, a very lower budget Star Wars show that's said to be a mix between Star Wars and the Goonies. Sounds a little strange to me, but we'll talk about that later on in the year. But what's interesting about this is how Kennedy is just challenging the Walt Disney Company at all costs. She wants that $9 million payout, or that raise, that increase in her salary, whatever have you, at all costs. She wants to make it happen no matter what, and she disagrees with Bob Iger's approach with his cost containment plan. Now look, we know that the Disney stock has not been doing too well throughout late June into early July. In fact, it is tanking for obvious reasons, expected to go up again a little bit. That's just how it is. But the overall average, it's been very erratic, but the downward spiral of the Disney stock, I believe, also has a lot of connections to do with the fact that they lost Nelson Peltz and his overall investments with Disney, and that didn't help them at all in the long run. There's also a lot of things going on with Bob Iger, the Disney tapes. A lot of shareholders are bailing because of that, and it's only going to get worse the more and more their agenda keeps getting exposed, and everything related to their push with their agenda for the Disney theme parks. But overall, guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.